So today, what I really want to discuss is, to start, the state of the industry. It's a turbulent time. Obviously, it's exciting with all the tech, and the technology that exists now is completely changing the way that brands connect with their audience. But as we saw from Alex's presentation, the big multinational agencies are in steep decline and struggling. Many people might think, well, this is the natural transformation, changing of the tides from the traditional way of thinking about creative to digital innovation. But I would argue that is a very dangerous assumption to make. What I believe is that the pursuit of big ideas is the most important thing that we should be focusing on as an industry. And that's what I'm going to discuss today and explore how we can take advantage of technology and where we can take advantage of technology in ways that allow us to not lose sight of what matters most. So I was a little worried speaking after Mark, but I think it's a nice segue and an extension to what Mark discussed. So I drive on the Gardiner often, as I'm sure many of you do, often in traffic. And as I'm stuck in my car looking around, I'm often struck by the sheer number of apartments in view. Not to get too philosophical here, but just all the windows, all the rooms, and all of the people who live inside, and how each one of them has their own life, their own career, their own family, friends. And it's an important reminder that people aren't numbers. And as marketers, as much as we're trying to reach many of them, we can't lose sight of the fact that this is a people-based business. We're in a relationship-based business with transactions within it. The former chief marketer of P&G once said that if marketers thought about measuring brands the way they think about measuring healthy relationships, it would lead to higher market share. Think about a friend you know. I imagine this is a person that you care about. I would imagine that they share similar values, that this is someone who you would speak highly of, that you'd want to spend time with. This is really what we're trying to do here. Of course, one side of this equation is, as brands, we need to know who we are, what we stand for, and act consistently. But really the point here, as Mark mentioned, is as long as human beings are making the purchasing decisions, this is a business about people talking to people. Let's think about space scientists and the Mars rover roaming the red planet right now as we speak. The way they think about tech is very different. They are exploring, looking at craters and trying to understand potential life forms. They're not mindlessly counting rocks. And I think what we find these days in marketing is many marketers, many brands and companies are thinking about the consumer as an insatiable buying machine. And I'm sure you can all think of examples, when you've been treated this way. But we all know that none of us are as simple as that. There's a ton of potential, obviously, through technology for marketers to get a deeper understanding, a window into what makes, who our consumers are as people, not just the consumer part of them who's buying. Some of the most successful advertising, I'd say most of the most successful advertising out there is rooted in a truth about what makes us human. An insight that goes deeper than what data can see. I love this example. This is a campaign for volunteer recruitment, and it taps into a brilliant human insight that just happens to speak to our sometimes superficial use of technology. The truth is that people make brand decisions emotionally. This is one example that comes to mind. It's Coke. And I'm sure many of you have seen it. This is the classic Hilltop campaign from the 70s with the song, "I'd like to buy the world a Coke." Of course, this is an old ad, but the reason I bring it up is because it's actually a perfect example, or leads to one, of the intersection between tech and ideas. 40 years later, the brand teamed up with Google and rebriefed the original creative team to come up with a digital extension on the same idea. The resulting execution was a way for anyone to send a Coke across the world to a stranger through a smart vending machine. Obviously, technology can help us reach the right people at the right time with the right message, can help us optimize delivery of media and creative, and automate tasks at scale. But tech combined with brilliant creative thinking can lead to ideas that soar to new heights. We see many marketers and brands these days, really focusing on the transactions. And I think Apple is just a great example. It's hard to resist talking about what they do because they've been so consistent at bringing emotionally charged ideas to life. Interestingly, Steve Jobs didn't rely on digital media and opted for other channels to showcase the ideas that they brought forward. And what's also interesting to note is that he famously believed that, and I think Mark brought up this point as well, that your product is your best marketing of all. And it really just reinforces the need to be thinking of big idea creativity from the outset, rather than thinking of creative as the last step in a process. This is what we need to do to build brands that will deliver long-term return on investment. The alternative is to be thinking of brands on a transactional basis, which is sure to lead to far shorter lives. This perspective is one that we built our company on, putting the idea at the center of everything that we do. We've built a community of creative professionals from around the world who help us come up with big ideas for some of the best brands in the world. We work with our clients to craft briefs that can inspire the kind of ideas that we're talking about, ideas rooted in human insight. And we believe in the value of fresh perspectives and diverse creative voices. So we start every project that we work on with a competition to find those best ideas. The most successful brands in history and the most successful brands today combine the forces of creativity and technology, and realize that technology can help to deliver better human insights. Technology can help amplify big ideas, and technology can help harness human creativity as we're doing. But tech is not an end in and of itself, nor is it a replacement for a creative idea. Without an idea to steer it, tech is a misguided missile destined to dehumanize the work that we create and the people that we speak to. Thank you.
I lost my mic. Does anybody have questions for Aaron?
Hi there. I was wondering, so is the main idea here to have a contest amongst many designers of a logo, for example, and then the purchaser picks the one that they want?
Not to get into the details of the business model, but it's less crowdsourcing content or design, more creative concepts. So it's a step within the process, but we believe there are certain areas that can't be automated, like strategy, refinement, and development of ideas.
Aaron,
Hey, Ritesh.
I'll take your last misguided dehumanizing missile aside, working in technology, but I think it's a great point. So thank you for bringing that up. Question for you, given that you're outsourcing basically to a global audience, the fact that different ideas have cultural reasons why ideas work in certain markets and they might not work in other markets. So how do you take that into account? Is that part of your sort of evaluation exercise to say it's a brilliant idea that might work in Sweden, but may not actually resonate with a Canadian client?
Yeah, it's a great question. Maybe I'll tackle it in a couple of ways. We always start with the brief, and in the way that we look to foster ideas, it's important that we provide the context needed. At the end of the day, for sure, there's local market understanding that can help. We have the ability to geo-target the projects that we run. So in some cases, obviously it's valuable to have local people thinking of solutions for your brands, but what we find is more often than not, the best ideas are coming from people in countries where the brand either isn't operating or that isn't the focus market for that project. But we do tend to work with global brands, which always helps when there's an awareness and understanding of what they are. But there's truth to this idea that everyone has a unique creative voice, and having a perspective from someone that thinks completely differently than someone that's local and has exposure to other companies and sources of inspiration is hugely valuable.
Hi. So my question was, I do agree that you start with a great idea, but can you maybe give an example of without technology where a great idea just is an idea and just falls apart, but take a great idea, combine it with technology, and it's awesome. So like obviously technology is part of our lives now. So like great idea, yes, in the past without technology, right now have always been there. But what tool or what really what does technology arm us with that like now a great idea can become even greater, if you will?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Coke Pre-Brief was one example, but it's a great test of a big idea if it can work in all different ways, and if you can start to see new ways that idea can come to life with new technology that didn't exist before. I'll give you one small example just on a project that we worked on recently for Chunky Soup. So the campaign idea, if you haven't seen it, is called Behold the Super You. It's a superhero-themed idea that had traditional elements, and an extension to that idea was to create 3D printed custom action figures to reward consumers through social listening and in a way that hadn't been done before, where you could upload your picture and without getting into the details of that project. So that's absolutely something that took the campaign engagement to a new level that wouldn't have been possible before. Thank you.
Thank you so much.